All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Joannis or Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American living here in Accra, Ghana. And if you want to know how I feel about the USA versus Ghana, then this is the video for you. All right. So we are live. It is Monday, November 15th, and we are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I am um, a little off because I actually fell asleep in my computer randomly about, I guess, 45 minutes ago, and I just woke up. So those of you who are just joining, thanks for joining. This is kind of a last minute live that I just set up. Usually I have topics scheduled for long before I go live, but today it is a live that I just set up. So we're going to give some time for people to join. I see some people joining on Instagram. What's up, Inspire84? Shout out to you. Thanks for joining. People are still joining on YouTube and Facebook. So we're going to give a little bit of time for people to join. Let me know if you guys can hear me. There's a rainstorm right now going on here. And so sometimes that tends to interfere with the connection. So let me know if you guys can hear me. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know if you can hear me. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Let me know if you guys can hear me. I'm checking to see if you guys can hear me. Let me know. But yeah, today we're going to talk about how I feel about Ghana versus the US. So IBP Media Group is actually asking to join the live. So let me first get this thing started first, and then I'll let people join IBP Media Group. All right, so let me give you 1 second. Actually, let me let you join. Why not? Let's do it. So we're gonna have somebody joining from the Instagram live. African historian. IBP Media Group is an African historian, so I sent the invite so they can join. Jay, which JAE says good afternoon. Greetings, brother. Greetings. How are you? What is going on? Tell me your name and where we're calling from.
Buffalo, New York. My name is Emmanuel Kulu Jr. I am the author of I, Black Pharaoh, Golden Age of Triumph. I'm also an African historian.
Okay.
Studying African history for the last 15 years and been really trying to bridge the gap between our African American brothers and sisters and our Africans on the continent.
Okay.
My father being from Cameroon, my mother is from Chicago, so I'm a true African American.
Yeah.
And I really hate to see these diaspora wars, and we got to do something about it, brother.
Well, I love it. That's part of why I started the Instagram page and why I also started the YouTube channel too. The idea is to bridge the gap. So I love it. Yeah. I'm with you. The diaspora wars, it seems to be in some cases dying down. In other cases, it seems to be exacerbated and growing. I think it all depends on who you talk to or who you're following. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it needs to end. But yeah, so you're a historian, but talk to us about like what some of the topics that you focus on in history. Is it all African history? Is it West African history? What are you focused on most?
I feel like the transatlantic slave trade has been told. That story has been told.
Sure.
Probably not in as full depth as I would like it to be.
Sure.
Because obviously the African American inventions, the things that we did that we haven't been given credit for in America, but mostly African history, I feel like our people have been told a lie. And I start from ancient Kemet all the way down to Zululand, just to show the beauty of our culture.
Yeah.
All around. Yeah. And I believe for us to claim to really regain our knowledge and understanding of who we were, we have to know we have to know about Axum, we have to know about Kemet, we have to know about Kush, We'd have to know about, Ghana, Mali. We have to know about Zimbabwe. We have to know about the Benin Kingdom.
Sure.
Zululand, as I mentioned, Carthage. So we have to know all of this because we were told in education systems that anyone who looks like us has no history.
Right.
Basically, with the exception of transatlantic slave trade.
Right.
So really ancient Africa is really what I cover particularly.
Okay.
To try to get to wake up.
Okay. I love it. I love it. Well, yeah, I mean, I think we're on the same path. I love to hear that. And yeah, I'd love to maybe set some time aside and actually bring you on as a guest so we can talk about, maybe we pick a topic and we do a deep dive into it. I'm really big into African history. I just came back from Kemet, or Egypt, last weekend. So yeah, there was a lot of really interesting information I got on that trip.
An African group?
No. I actually was there with my in the capacity of my day job. So we had our advertising workshop there, and I just so happened to get some time to go to the pyramids of Giza, go to the Egyptian Museum, and do all of that. So it was actually, it just kind of happened randomly. We learned about it 3 weeks ago that we were going to Egypt, because that's where I work for Jumia full time. I don't know if you're familiar. They're the Amazon of Africa, e-commerce store on the continent of Africa.
Okay.
And so
Beautiful.
yeah, one of our offices is in Cairo, and so we did our advertising workshop.
I can get my book in there.
Yeah, I mean, there are all kinds of sellers from all over the continent. Each country has its own infrastructure, and but yeah, we all met up as an advertising team, all the people who run advertising in each of our respective countries, and at the end of it, we had the opportunity to go to the pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx, and then if you stayed longer, like I did, then I got a chance to do some more things. But yeah, I definitely would love to.
Aswan is where I went, and
Okay.
This is where it caused my great awakening with Kemet Nu. I want to throw Kemet Nu out there as great people who do great tours.
Okay.
I went out there with them my first time. I've been there 7 times. Been to Kemet 7 times.
Okay.
My first time I went out with Kemet Nu. Shout out to them, brother Kwesi, who's been doing this work for a lot of years. Renoko Rashidi was doing this work for so many years. Those are the elders that really schooled us, us young brothers. And when I see what's happening, which kind of started on Clubhouse, codifying the African Union, it breaks my heart because it's so many. It's Sheikh Anta Diop, it's Ivan Van Sertima, it's so many, Renoko Rashidi, who really try to tell us that there's not one African country alone that can fight off white supremacy. So we have to, the only solution to the African problem is unity. That's the only solution.
Yeah.
And when I see African Americans saying we're not African, we're Indian, we're something else, or we're Aboriginal people from America, it kind of scares me, brother, because it's codifying what our ancestors built, and it's separating ourselves from who we are. And yes, there are many of us who are mixed with Native Americans, mixed with Europeans and other things too.
Sure.
But predominantly, we are Africans. We still carry that African phenotype. We still have the Afro. We haven't lost that, even through our ancestors being raped. So these are the things that we have to embrace. We have to love it. They told us so much to hate ourselves, my brother. And now with the work that you're doing, the work that I'm doing, the work that those other brothers that I mentioned were doing, to bring the diaspora together, to awaken us, we cannot allow these diaspora wars to divide us.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important for us all to realize that we are one. Now that I will say I've heard a lot of people as of recent talk about this concept of Africans being in America, in the Americas, as natives, right? Now, obviously, we still would have had to come from somewhere, right? There's the idea that the Mansa Musa's father, and forgive me, I'm forgetting his name.
Abu
Right, exactly, Abu Bakr. Yeah, the second, I think, if I'm not mistaken. You, yeah, who sailed west, sailed west.
Right.
Yeah,
Even in Mexico, brother, there's a huge population of African people still there.
right, right.
So yeah, I absolutely agree, and that was Ivan Van Sertma's theory on and Leo Wiener's theory that there's African plants that were here, the bottle gourds, the squash. These plants were already here,
right?
That are African plants.
Yep.
Before Columbus. Columbus in the second voyage, he mentioned that the Native Americans of Hispaniola told him that blacks were coming in large ships trading with them. And they took the spears that they found from these Africans,
right,
that the natives gave that were from the Africans, and they found that they were from Western Mali. So some believe, I'm not gonna dogmatically say that it was from Mali, because we don't know for a fact. We do know the story of Abu Bakr,
right.
And I trust Ivan Van Sertma's theory. But we do know that Africans were traveling the seas far before Europeans.
Right, right. I think that that's something that's widely agreed upon. Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, man. I look. I continue this conversation all day, but I think I wanna jump into the topic of today. But I thought while we are waiting for some people to get on, and you requested to join live, I wanted to give you the opportunity to jump on here. But let's connect. I'd love to do an entire live based around African history, and we can deep dive on a particular topic. But yeah, let's definitely do that. But I definitely appreciate you joining and adding some insight and some conversation around making sure that we, all of us Africans from the continent living in the diaspora, those of us who have dual backgrounds, we all come together as one, because we are stronger together. So I love that idea and that thought process. We're on the same wavelength there, and I think that we should definitely continue to push that narrative. So with that, thanks for joining. Yeah.
And for everybody, look out for the PBS interview. I did a PBS interview on ancient African, the ancient African origins of ancient Egypt. It's going to be on PBS News, also the BBC. I just did a documentary with them, a small, brief documentary with them.
Okay.
So I'll give updates on when that's coming out as well. So yeah, man, I love to connect with you, brother. I'm gonna send you a DM.
Okay.
What is your name? I'm sorry.
So it's Joe, Joannis, or Joe. I go by Joe sometimes, depending on if it's easier. But Joannis is the full name. But yeah, just message me on the Authentic African channel. The DM me there, and we'll work out something to have a further discussion.
Sounds great, my brother. I love what you're doing. Every time I see some of your posts, I share them, brother.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, you too. Thanks. Cool. So if you guys want to join the live, let me know. I'll let you guys join. So yeah, we got a couple people joining. Is it Jay? Jay says good afternoon. Good afternoon to you. You must be in the US if you're saying good afternoon. Nana saying, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Thanks for joining. Callie Calv is in the building. I saw you on Instagram Live. Shout out to you. Thanks for joining. Who else do we got? We got a bunch of other folks on. The Ghana plug. Thank you. Kiwa, beautiful indeed. Hello. Kali Kav. Africa is still under colonial rule, but we must get free, and we can get free. I agree 100%. Would you agree when we say the youth of the future? Yes, of course, the youth of the future, literally and figuratively speaking. Yes, for sure. All right, cool. So today's live, as I mentioned right at the jump, it's been a crazy few days. I got in from Egypt on Saturday, and it's been really busy just trying to catch up from being out for an entire week. So I didn't have the opportunity to put together a live far in advance to determine what we wanted to talk about today. So I thought I would just talk about the differences between what life was like for me in the U.S. versus here, and what I like better about being in Ghana, and then some of the things I miss about being in the U.S. So yeah, I'm gonna just jump into some of those things. Because I just thought, why not? Let's just talk about it. So, with this channel, right? The idea of this channel is always to make sure to explain what it's like to move to the continent, right? Good, bad, ugly. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm also not going to trash this country that I'm enjoying living in as well. So, really, what I do is I spend my time just sharing my experience, right? Whatever my experience has been. So, this forum is to allow people to ask me questions. We talk about topics pertaining to what's happening on the continent, or specifically in Ghana, or wherever I might be at that time. And then from there, we kind of just build on the conversation from there. So with that, my experience living here has been, has had its ups and downs. Most more ups than downs. It's been a great experience so far, but there are challenges moving to a new country and a different culture than what you're normally used to. So, for one, Ghana is obviously, considered a emerging market or part of the developing world, right? So that would mean some of the the comforts that you're used to having coming from living in the US or living in the West would not be there as readily available, right? So, for instance, I used to order from e-commerce all the time, next day delivery, um, every week or so, and that is obviously something I can't do. And now I do order online because, of course, we have Jumia here. But I also go to stores directly and buy. So I do more buying in stores than I have in a long time. So that's been new. Just getting used to buying from stores, but then there's also the idea that my grocery shopping is done for me. My house is cleaned for me. My food is cooked for me. My juices are made. My lunches are made by house help. I have a housekeeper, and it's just much more affordable to have a housekeeper here. It's just a part of it's expected as part of your everyday life that if you are even like middle class here, you can afford a housekeeper, and a housekeeper does all the things you might need done in your house, so that you can focus on the things that you do best. So for me, I'm a big fan of the book The 4 Hour Work Week, right? Where what I really gained from that book was outsource the things that you do not have the bandwidth or the time to deal with. And so that would be my recommendation to you all. If you can, outsource it to other people. And so that's what I do. And so I have a housekeeper that does that work for me, which I would not have been able to do had I been in the U.S. Right? It's just not affordable in the U.S. So those are some of the differences, right? Being able to order next day delivery of different items that you might need, whether it's hair products, beard products for me. Sometimes it was like a pair of socks, whatever it is, right? It just takes a little longer to get those things. My iPhone is not working, one of my iPhones. And so it's going to have to be either I have to have someone here try to fix it, that is not an authorized Apple reseller or authorized Apple retailer. And if in fact something goes wrong with that process, I cannot then get Apple to fix it. So I'm going to have to send it to the US in order to stay within my warranty to get the iPhone fixed, right? So, little things like that where you don't think about needing the easy access to certain things that you have in the West, but it comes up, and then you realize it would be nice to be able to just go to my nearest Apple store. When I was in LA, my laptop had some issues. I was able to go to Apple store 20 minutes away, get it back the next or 2 days or 3 days later, and it was good to go. In this case, I'm going to have my phone go with someone to the US. They drop it off, go to the Apple store, see if Apple can fix it. If they can, whenever they come back, that person will be bringing the phone back with them, right? Those are the kinds of things that you think about, that like you don't think about before you move here, but are things that have to happen if you need something fixed, like an iPhone, because unfortunately there are no Apple stores here in Ghana. There are Apple authorized resellers, but they're limited in what they can do. So yeah, so those are some of the differences. But also, what I will say is, and I mentioned this before, my experience with the police is much different here. Obviously there are checkpoints here. They pull you over. Sometimes they'll even ask you to, they can go through your things to make sure you don't have anything that is illegal, et cetera, et cetera. But your experience with the police here is, it's so much less life threatening, right? Like you get out and have a little conversation with them, you do what you do, and you go on your way. In the U.S., anytime I encountered the police, it was always there was always some skepticism on their part, from me, and on my part for them, right? Not really sure what I'm about to encounter. If my life is in danger or not, those kinds of things. Those are not the things I think about if I encounter the police here, right? So that's a major difference, which I feel like just gives you a level of freedom, I think, that I don't think that I've had previously. Uh, Beyond that, too, I think one of the major things about being here in Ghana, and even when I'm in Sierra Leone, is that I'm no longer a minority. I've talked about this before, but I think that it's really, really important to live your life in a place where you don't feel like you are um, second to another group, or at least, even if you don't feel that way, there aren't systems in place that that uh, that necessarily put you in a position where you are actually second to other groups, right? We are the majority here, and and it feels good to be a majority and not to be a minority. Especially knowing that we aren't really a minority on the global scale, but in the U.S., I was a minority. I always fit into a minority group, and so I don't feel that way here. So yeah. Any questions? Anybody have any questions or thoughts about or about being in Ghana? Oh yeah, so Cali Calv has a question about light. Yeah, I mean, that is also one of the things that in the West you're just used to, right? Like you pay your electric bill and you got light no matter what. Here in West Africa, and depending on where you are, there are differences in how often light goes out, but you definitely need to have a generator wherever you live, because power does go out from time to time. I think a lot of that has to do with where we get our power from. In the U.S., there are many nuclear power plants all around the country, or around the country, I should say. I don't know how many there are, but there are many different ways that power is supplied to different regions and all the different grids and whatnot. Here, each country is different. They have different processes. I don't know exactly how it works in Ghana. I know they have a central power system, but in Sierra Leone, for instance, they have a central power system, but they also got a private company. I think it was from Turkey, if I'm not mistaken, who basically put like power plants in the water, and they were supplying power to Freetown in Sierra Leone. And so what that means is that power goes out from time to time, and it can go out for extended periods of time. In Ghana, and depending on what region you're in, even what part of Accra you're in, power can go out. But many people have generators, and generators just kick in pretty much immediately. So where I live, in the apartment building that I live in, we have a generator. As soon as power goes out, the generator kicks in. Power goes out sometimes at the office. When power goes out at the office, the generator kicks in. So yeah, there are different ways to ensure that you have power. When I'm in Sierra Leone, there's also it's more sporadic and longer term. And so, yeah, it definitely happens. All right. So look, the Ghana plug is asking to join. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to join. Let's bring you on and let you join this live. So I know the Ghana plug has been commenting and following the channel for a while. So I appreciate you joining. What's up, man? How you doing?
How you doing, brother? My dear brother.
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic, brother. Thanks for accepting the request. Mine is a bit shorter than yours, but November. They say November is beard month.
Yeah, I guess Movember because of testicular cancer, right? And the idea is to grow out your beard in solidarity and things like that. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, thanks for joining. I mean, I see that you've been commenting and liking some of the videos and some of the content. So yeah, I wanted to give you the opportunity to join and ask your questions live. Did you have some questions for me or some comments on the content?
Yeah, more commentary, really.
Okay.
I always want to support brothers like yourself who are like-minded. I like your content. I'm actually from Ghana. Well, obviously the name gives it away.
Of course.
Yeah, I grew up here in the States ever since I was a child.
Okay.
So I have really interest in a little bit of a different perspective than a lot of African Americans. Growing up here, you're obviously around a lot of African Americans.
Yeah.
Coming from Africa, you have a really different perspective. You said you were born here, right, in the States.
I was born in the U.S. Yeah.
Right, but you grew up under African, parentage.
Yep.
Which is a big juxtaposition because
yeah.
I have kids. Here. I have 3 kids, and
okay.
It's really interesting watching them grow up. The different experiences that they're having.
Yep.
Growing up in America, but kind of like in an African household.
Yep.
Probably like you grew up. So it's really interesting trying to raise kids under in an African culture. The things that you have to teach them, and also with them going to school, it can be a little confusing for them, I think. But I think eventually they're going to learn to appreciate it. I hope. But yeah, the real thing that I wanted to comment on when you talked about the power and the lights. I actually have a YouTube channel myself, so I've been creating content since last year.
Okay.
And I recently did an interview with a friend of mine who's a marketing director for a company called SunPower GH.
Okay.
A solar company in Ghana.
Yeah, I've heard of
They've
them.
been building. So they've been doing a lot of solar work in Ghana. I believe they have an office in Nigeria, he said, and also in South Africa.
Yeah.
And it is an expensive, capital-intensive business to get into.
Sure.
But I think that's a huge opportunity because one thing that we have in abundance in Africa
sunlight.
is sunlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's even here, that business is popping off. I mean, my house right here, I have people coming around trying to sell solar all the time.
Oh yeah, of course.
Last 2 to 3 years, it's really increasing the amount of salespeople that they have for solar. So yeah, that's a really huge opportunity, I think, in Ghana, for anyone out there that has the capital to able to invest in that. I think that's something that the entrepreneur-minded folk out here in the United States want to really look into.
Yep.
It's really capital intensive, but I mean, I think that the ROI on that could be huge going up to 5-10 years down the line.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, I think when it comes to solar, right, it's still kind of a nascent industry. It's still new, but it's viable, right? So like for me in the building I'm building in Sierra Leone, we're just about getting ready to start the phase 2 of the boys' quarters, the where the house help is going to live. And I'm setting it up with solar and with the regular power grid, right? And there are so many companies to choose from, right? Even in Sierra Leone, there are a few different companies to choose from. There's a lot of people who do it, privately in their own capacity, where they can just set you up and get you a battery. I think the main thing that everyone needs to know is that the technology today isn't at a place where solar can be stored and reused just with solar. Right now, you do have to have some kind of battery that is storing some of that power, so that's like juicing up and charging a battery. And then at night, that battery supplies the light at night. And then in terms of what kind of devices these solar power devices can power, it is going to be a bit limited, right? Depending on the size of the battery that you get or how big your place is and how much solar power you get. In general, it can power the lights, television, sometimes a freezer and a refrigerator, fans. But when it comes to like AC or AC really takes up a lot of power. That's the one that takes up the most power, right? So it's challenging to be able to cover that. So, but it is important to supplement your power with that. The U.S. has a bunch of stuff. They have a bunch of programs where if you're helping to supply power to the grid, they give you credit back. So in most states, your electric bill will be lower if you use solar power. They'll actually give you credit back. Whereas here, depending on where you are, your overall electric bill can be lowered by using solar, right? So yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend it for everyone. I think we need to just get to a place where we can safely dispose of those batteries once they're used, because that's the one thing that I have a challenge with. Is I'm very big on like green energy, and although solar power is better than nuclear or oil and gas power, there still is a little bit of a detriment to the public good because of the disposable batteries, these giant batteries, but it's still better than the other options that we have today. But yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, so solar is definitely important, and I agree. I recommend everyone look into solar. And like you said, on the continent, especially in West Africa, we have like 15 hours of sunlight in certain places. So solar makes a lot of sense here. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Not to mention it's a value add for your property, especially over here.
Yeah,
But one thing I did want to ask you, just looking at your content,
yeah.
what have you found is an obstacle? Obviously growing up here and then moving to Africa in terms of the mentality of folks in Ghana or a place like Sierra Leone where you're from.
Yeah, so what you said, what a challenge might be with mentality. Yeah, so one challenge I find is and now and I want to say this is not a blanket statement for everyone. I always have to be very clear about that, because I know our Ghanaian friends can be very offended sometimes when you make statements like blanket statements about Ghanaians. So I want to be very clear. It's not in every case, but there are a couple things that I've seen. I feel like, well, this is actually, I think everyone can agree with. More times than not, people leave here and don't come back, right? And if they come back in their old age, and there's not much to offer at that elderly age to help advance what's going on here, right? I think we were thriving until capitalism was brought to us and forced upon us. But now that that's the way the world works, the continent of Africa does have to catch up, right? And I feel like what happens a lot of time is people try to escape the continent, and then when they go elsewhere, they focus there and don't focus back home. And so I think that there's this idea that America is better, and in some cases it can be, depending on what you're looking for and what you plan to do. But what I'd like to see is what I see happening in China is that people go to school in the West and then bring their ideas back. Jack Ma is a good example of this. Somebody who's done it at the generation before us, the guy who started Alibaba, right? He went to college in the US. He was living in New Jersey. He came up with the idea for Alibaba, but he actually moved back to China and built a multi-billion-dollar business. And his country is benefiting from his intellectual capital, and then also some of what he gained in the United States, just understanding international business and knowing more than just the world that he grew up in. And I think I'd like to see more of that. And so I think one of the things that I feel like is one of the biggest challenges is people see the West as better, and sometimes they even see the people in the West as better, and they sometimes hold them on a pedestal just because of the success some of the Western countries have had based on free labor, right? I think we have to remember that they skipped past everyone because they used free labor to build their capitalistic societies. But I see that a lot of people hold them in higher regard, and so I think that that's some of the mentalities we need to get away from. And then lastly, because we are in this capitalistic society and because we work in a world that's basically ruled by the West. I think we need to be on West time. If we're going to be doing business with the West, we need to move like the West in terms of being on time, meeting deadlines. One of the challenges I have here is, in the U.S. we got CPT, we got Black was Color People Time, Black Man Time, right? And we joke about it, and then they even have it here, right? In Sierra Leone, we got Salon Man Time. Ghana, we Ghana Man Time, right? And we have to get away from that, because that gives you the excuse to be late all the time, and it allows people to take you less seriously, right? I think we have some of the most educated, some of the most the most ingenuity, people who can really takes nothing and make it something. And the problem is we're not always taking it seriously, because there's that mentality of, well, I can be late, because we're always late. That's what we do. This is who we are.
We lack that sense of assertiveness. Like,
Right.
we get it, like, that mentality of you're just, doing whatever it takes to get it, and we just, kind of.
Oh, we're losing you a little bit.
I don't know what it's like in other countries. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you were breaking up a bit. You were saying the sense of assertiveness, and then we lost you for a second.
Right. Yeah, I was saying that I don't know what it's like in other countries, but I can speak for Ghana, and I lived in Nigeria for a year when I was about 7.
Okay.
My mother, who worked in Nigeria for a time, but I think that the issue with Ghanaians is that we've kind of baked this type of mentality into us, that we don't really need to hustle for anything. We kind of like, it's okay. I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll put it off. I don't want to rush. This is our lifestyle.
Yeah.
And the problem is, whenever somebody moves from the state, a Ghanaian, for example, moves from the West and goes back to Ghana and tries to change things, or tries to tell a Ghanaian to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
All they hear is, "Oh, you're too known. You're acting like you know better than us. This is how it's always been," and that's the problem.
Yeah.
With that type of mentality, things are going to be really difficult to change. And that's the problem. But yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just wanted to jump on here because I've been checking you out for a while. But yeah, my channel is the Ghana Plug on YouTube. If you ever want to check it out, I've got some content on there. But yeah, I'll be in Ghana hopefully next year, early next year. Maybe we can link up at that point.
Yeah, sounds good. We can potentially do some content together. I'm if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I subscribe to your YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll double check. But yeah. I mean, I
subscribe to yours. So.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you subscribing and following and jumping on and giving your insight as a Ghanaian living in the U.S. I mean, just to that last point that you made, that's the thing that I realized by coming here, is that I need to be humble and realize that I'm in another country's culture. And so, but I do my best to try to impart that on the people who I work with, that it's really important that we stick to timelines, right? Because we definitely complain, right? We complain about how things are and things that aren't working the way they should. And it just takes each one of us to do our own part, right? And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think we need to work on that. But I will say though, I'm really proud to say that I work with some of the smartest people that I've ever worked with. I think we just need to work on being more on time. That's all. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good meeting you, my brother. My name is Anan, by the way.
Anan. All right. Nice to meet you too, man.
All right. Pleasure.
All right. Thanks for joining. Looks like we got somebody else who wants to go live. Let's see what we got. Who do we got? I think it's okay. You're gonna have to tell me your name. Is it Vangama? Let's see. We're gonna go live. So, shout out to Helen Brown. Thanks for joining. Hi, Helen. And Global Green Book, One Love. Thanks for joining. What's up? And we're live. Yes. What's up? What's up? Tell me your name and where you're calling from.
Ulama. Vungama, like it's like Vungama.
Oh, Vungama, yes.
Yes, and I'm calling from South Africa.
From South Africa. Shout out to you. I was actually just in Egypt, and a couple of my coworkers were from South Africa, and they were telling me how much I need to get to Cape Town. I would love it. Apparently,
Yeah,
it's
not just you need to go to Cape Town, that's nice, but just like try, discover the whole of like South Africa in general.
Okay.
So see everything. Yeah, so yeah. But like, listen, I wanted to come on because I was hearing you talk about like you being in Ghana and how like the pros and cons and everything of being in a Western country
Yep.
compared to like a developing country and stuff. And one thing I just realized, even with you saying like how people usually from Africa, well, you said Ghana go to like the States and they forget about home and stuff like that. And like they don't come back because it's shiny things and they seem like that's the better life, the materialistic life, and rather than the heritage life and stuff like that. But like,
Right.
it just made me realize like how like this is one of the reasons why as Africans or Akabulanians, let me rather say, I feel like we got lost is the fact that like even like with colonialism and how when white people like came to Africa, how they gave us the Bible, they stole our minerals, And I just feel like as Africans, or we looking at it in the wrong way, and I just feel like if we could just understand like the importance of Africa, just with the heritage, spirituality, the resources we have, because to be honest, like I always keep seeing this quote, because my algorithm on Instagram is always about conscious African shit.
Sure.
So sorry for my language. But like
good.
how like Africa is the poorest country, right? But it is like the richest in terms of mineral wealth. And for me, like it makes me show like how all the West needs Africa to survive.
Right.
How white people needed African innovations for them to make themselves great. Because
sure.
And I think that's one of the mistakes that we keep, getting to is the fact that we think as Africans that Europeans made Africans and we are the ones who are very barbaric and stuff, whereas it's actually the other way around.
Right.
The reason why the world is what it is today. And I just feel like as Africans, we need to look at it in a different way. And I feel like when you start to become conscious, that's when we can realize, no, we don't need to go there to become better. We need to be here, understand our land, our heritage, and from there on we can grow. But at the same time, we're not together. We really, how is it, divide and conquer. There's tribalism. Every black person is fighting against each other when they should be fighting the one enemy, which is colonization. Because to be honest, it's not over. It's still very much present in today's Africa, and especially in South Africa.
Yeah.
A lot of people see South Africa as very modern and stuff like that, but you need to realize, like even as there's 8% of the population in South Africa is white people, right? But they own like 80% of the mineral wealth in South Africa, which is really deep if you look at it like that. And I always tell my friends and stuff, I'm like, okay, yes, with Africa, and it's very advanced, compared to other African countries and stuff like that. But what do we actually own? We don't really own anything,
Yeah.
Now, that needs to change, because if that doesn't change, we'll always be stuck in the system, especially with like even African politicians as a whole. That's why we'll always be greedy and want to take money for themselves and not try to build the continent of the country. Is because of this thing of like how white people like it, making a lot of black millionaires, but they're going to be the ones to become rich. So it's like basically they're keeping us in check by basically divide and conquer. And I just feel like if we can recognize that, we will be much better. And we need to sacrifice. One thing I always want to say, we need to sacrifice. Like we need to sacrifice today just for a better tomorrow. Like people like Malcolm X. That's why I'm very like, it's like those are like they inspire me, Malcolm X, because they knew, okay, I could die any day, but for me to make a difference, I need to do this. People need to be selfless as Africans, so that our future generations can look back on us and be like, wow, I want to be like that. But I feel like if we don't start doing that and sacrificing, so that not literally like dying or anything, but just sacrificing, like who you are, like how people view you, and actually tell the truth of who you are, and try to make other black kings and queens conscious, actually make like our world better as Africans. And I also love what you do, so I wanted to come on just to say that.
Well, thank you, and yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think, just to kind of follow up on what you said, I think it's really important that we, as a people and across the continent, realize not only do we have the natural resources in the ground, but we also have the human resources, right? The ingenuity, I mentioned this previously, but the ingenuity that you have in Africa because of the circumstances, I think allows us to be able to be better equipped to navigate the future, right? And I think we need to take more I think we need to believe in ourselves more and need to understand that more. I think we still do need to work within the framework and the confines of how capitalism works, right? But I think you do that with an understanding of who you are and where you come from and our power. But yeah, I agree with what you said. I think there's the challenge that we have today is that there's too much credence and too much given to the West in terms of how Africans view the West. And the thing that has to be remembered is that Africa has had many civilizations that have been the premier civilization of its time. It's just that right now, over the last like 300 or 400 years, in terms of the span of all of human existence, Africa has been behind. But it doesn't mean that we cannot come back and take our rightful place on the world stage. And I think that that's the goal, right? Is this collective consciousness is like this page is meant to help do that, both on Instagram and on YouTube, and then so many other pages are doing that as well. And I think yeah, you hit it on the nose. I think that that's what we need to do as a group, is to work together to get to that place. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man, and I appreciate you following the channel, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no, definitely. I had to follow because, like, to be honest, like for me, if I can just say something before I go,
Sure.
because I also don't want to take this out. I'm sure the other people want to talk to you.
Sure.
But like, I used to be very, I used to have like a colonialized mind.
Sure.
And it took a lot for me to like be conscious, and it was a lot of work because it's like you have friends who are also white, and other than look at you in a different light, and like I used to be that person. But like, you know, what happened for me is I had like some people in my corner who really showed me who I was. You know, I thought I was, I'm Zulu. You know, I'm Zulu. I thought that's where my history starts and that's where it ends. And before that, it was just white people. But I started to realize like how even the Moors, you know, like the pyramids, the castles, like how, you know, people always associate with like castles in Europe, from the medieval times. But like I never realized like how there's castles in Ethiopia and castles around like Africa, and I realized that we were the blueprints for the world to be like, basically westernized, what they call it today.
Yep.
You know, and I just like, for people even like think, I encourage like them as Africans to like travel, or to like actually travel and actually go to Africa, because there's actually beautiful places to go. But one thing we must not like make a mistake of, we mustn't try to travel to Africa like we're going to Italy and stuff. We must travel with the mindset of, I want to learn who I am, because I think that's also one of the reasons why Africans were lost, because we don't know who we are. And
right.
To be honest, I also saw a statistic, but it was way back when I was still in like high school, where I heard that only 32% of Americans don't even have like passports to travel.
Yeah, I think that's still the case. Yeah, that statistic is still pretty true. Yeah, most people in America, period. But yeah, I mean, and it specifically disproportionately impacts people of color in the US in terms of, because of the work that it requires to get a passport. People don't realize that there's a cost associated with it. Not too many people can afford it or would even be able to afford travel. Right. But yeah, I think that that's hugely important. I think like there are other nations, right, where people travel to their neighboring countries. The US is not one of those, right? So yeah, I think that that's true though. And I love what you said about not going like you're going to Italy, but going to find yourself. That's a big part of why I recommend people going to Ghana, especially African Americans in America, because they likely came through the transatlantic slave trade at some point, or even came from West Africa. And so you get a bit of a better understanding of who you are, even if it's not your direct lineage. It still just gives you an idea of in general, your people from a particular region where they come from. So yeah. Thank you for joining, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for following.
Yeah, no, definitely. And if you could like, not today, but just go look at my Instagram. Like I don't have like this conscious thing that you're doing, but like I have some IGTV videos that I basically release, so that people who are like, that follow me and stuff, and my friends, like and black people, they can actually go watch them, and like it can ignite something in them for them to go do their own research to find out about their blackness and how beautiful it is and stuff. So if you have time, just look at my videos. Like I think you'll find them interesting. I even cover like the Hidden Colors documentary, and like you know, like I go into detail and like tell people what it means and stuff like that. But thanks again for having me, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for joining.
Thanks.
All right. Peace.
Bye.
Yeah, so thanks guys. I mean, I'm loving these conversations. This is really awesome. I'm glad everybody decided to join today, because I wasn't sure what topic to cover. I literally fell asleep the hour before the live and woke up like with like 5 minutes to go. So this actually been a really good conversation. So let me just go through some of the comments and the questions that I'm seeing. So Godwin, Ghana to the world forever and ever. Yes, sir. Um, Jose Cruz, you changed your picture. You know, it's no longer the Black Panther. But what's up, man? Thanks for joining. Quick recap. So the this call was, or this live was supposed to be about the differences between the U.S. and living here in Ghana. What I like about living here. And I just had some folks come on live and just speak to their experience, what they'd like to see from the continent, and even ask me some questions. So it's kind of a free flowing discussion, but it's mainly the content is about the differences between being in the West and being here, and what we'd like to see. Dream Team says, what is the best way to remember German vocabulary and the words and sentences? It's an interesting question. German, I wouldn't know that, to be honest. I don't know if this is necessarily uh, the right YouTube live or Instagram live to know that, but I think the best way to learn any vocabulary for any language, let's just speak to that in particular, is to be in the place that they speak it, and you need to speak it every day, because it's one thing to listen to it, it's another thing to read it and to speak it. I think those are the two things that are really important. This is what I'm learning as someone who is learning and speaking Creole, which is one of the native languages in Sierra Leone. For me, what helps me is speaking Creole to people, seeing it written, because then I see, because you hear it one way, but you see it phonetically written another way. So that's been really helpful, and then it allows me to speak it. And as I'm speaking it, I'm really getting a command of the language. But also, you can't understand a culture without understanding their language, because language is such an important part of people's culture. So I would definitely recommend wherever you go, you try the best to learn as much as you can. I'm also trying to do that here in Ghana. Much more difficult than I initially anticipated, but I'm working on it. Okay. Only one is back. Hey, it's been a while. It has been a while. Thanks for coming back. And then Helen Brown says, Ghana is a safe and peaceful place to live. The U.S., there are a lot of commitments. Let me know what you mean by that. But yeah, I mean, for sure, Ghana is, I think, top 10. I think it's number 7 in terms of safest countries in the world. So yeah, I think that's definitely the case for sure. But yeah. I mean, I appreciate you guys joining. I mean, this has gone by pretty fast. How long have we been on the live now? 53 minutes. So I'm just gonna go through a couple more things that for me I think are the differences. So when I was in the U.S., one thing that I got really into over the last like 6 or 7 years was recycling. I'm really big on trying to have a sustainable future, and unfortunately, from my experience in Ghana and in Sierra Leone, recycling is not something that is not really top of mind for most people, right? So there's a lot of single-use plastics all over the place. Plastic bags are big here. Single-use plastic water bottles. I mean, I'd love to be able to dispose of these things and recycle them. And I've seen some places that do have recycling, but for the most part, these just get thrown away and they end up in landfills. And so that's one of the things that I would like to see changed, and I'm doing some research into it now and figuring out how do I ensure that I help further the cause here in terms of recycling. This stuff all is kind of privatized, so you have to have a company that does it. But yeah, that's a major difference that I see that I wish would be different, is more of a focus on recycling. And I also understand that most plastic, whether it's recyclable or not, can only be recycled one time. So I'm also not under the illusion that recycling is the solution to all of the problems with the world's garbage. But it helps reduce it quite a bit, you know, and I'd like to see more recycling here. I haven't seen it. So by the way, if there's anybody on who lives in Ghana or has any recommendations for companies that I can work that I can recycle through, let me know, because I haven't seen or found it as of yet. There's a lot of conversations going on the live, too much to read, but you guys are having your own conversations on live. I love that the conversations are happening in the comments too. This is awesome. That's what I love to see. That I love to see that. So Jose Cruz mentions that there is a Ghanaian making houses out of old plastic bottles. I have seen that. Yeah. So there's I saw a video the BBC had done a special on him. Yeah, I've seen that, and apparently it's even cooler. So I've thought about utilizing that myself, doing something like that for my house in Sierra Leone. I still need to look into this a little bit more and look into that person. But yeah, I definitely need to do that. King Wilfred I says, I hate the term people of color. Yeah, I mean, that is one of the phrases that people use these days, people of color, POC. Yeah, what word do you like better? Actually, let me hear that. Let's see if there's a better phrase to describe our people. I'd love to see or hear that. Mr. Bounce Los Angeles, shout out to you, showing up, telling everybody to smash that like button. Same thing on YouTube. Yes, hit the like button for sure. If you are enjoying these conversations and you think that there are other people that would benefit from these kinds of conversations, then definitely like, comment, subscribe, share all of this content with other people that you know who'd want to be involved in these kinds of conversations. You know, I'm live every Monday at 9 p.m. GMT, and my goal is to share my experience, but also to have these enlightened conversations. These are the kind of conversations I have in my personal life, right? And so I realize how much I've gained over the last 5 years with meeting people who are on the same wavelength and have these kinds of conversations. And so I like to have basically those same kinds of conversations with you all. Let's see. Also, only one is saying the same thing. Yeah, there's a guy using recycled plastics to build houses. So maybe that's one way to try to get my stuff recycled is taking some of these bottles to him and seeing what he can do. Yeah, because I would love to see a better use for these single or even multi-purpose plastics. At this point in time, it's just such a big part of what we do. It needs to be, we need to find a way to not make sure it ends up in landfills. So Chloe CO 2004 asked Jose Cruz if you hablas español. I think the answer is yes for Jose. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not going to answer for you. And that means, do you speak Spanish? For those of you who don't know, you know, I speak very little Spanish, but I know what that meant. All right, cool. Let me see if there's any other comments or questions that I can bring to the forefront. There's a lot of conversations going on in the Instagram comments. A lot. There's a lot. Cool. Anybody else want to join the live? And Jose Cruz, by the way, says sí or yes. He does speak Spanish. Cool. Yeah. Anybody else want to join the live? Any questions that you guys have for me about my experience in Ghana versus the US? Questions, comments, concerns, things you guys want to talk about? This is kind of a free forum. I want to leave this open to you to ask me questions directly. Okay. So back to King Wilfred is saying that Black Americans for Black Americans. Okay, he's saying that people of color is used to dilute Black Americans. Yeah, I mean, because it's more inclusive of other groups, which I understand. It's not specific to Black Americans, people of color. Okay, that's fair. I understand what you're saying there. Okay, cool. Guys, we are right about at 1 hour. I want to leave it open for a couple more questions or a couple more comments, or if anybody else wants to get on the live to jump on. As I mentioned, I was out all last week. And so what ends up happening is Mondays, although I love to do these lives and I love having these conversations, I get inundated with emails and things that need to be followed up on. Everything is a tier one top priority thing. And I actually have to finish the reports that I need to send out tonight to one of my clients, to two of my clients, actually. Um, you know what I will say? You know what I will say? And I think that this is something that I really just recently discovered, and it's something we need to think about is, I'm in the world of advertising. I've always been in advertising. And that's been my career for the last almost 15 years. I can't believe it's been that long. So, yes, I am that old that I have a 15-year career after college, by the way. And so, one thing that I'm seeing here is most of the advertisements um, that I see across, like at least in Sierra Leone and Ghana, and I'm seeing more than just this, but like the people who spend the most is betting companies, people who like betting on sports and alcohol. My two biggest clients at Jumia are alcohol clients. Well, one, my biggest client, and then another one who happens to be like another pretty big client is alcohol clients. And I would like to see other more diverse industries advertising, right? Because I think, obviously if you have a product that is that has a common good, it has it's a benefit to society, you should advertise it, right? I mean, it's just, you want to get in front of more people. Unfortunately, more often than not, what I'm seeing is liquor companies. And I'm not going to get on my high horse. I don't drink as much as I used to. I only drink red wine now. I don't drink like hard liquor anymore, but that's not to say that I don't understand that people enjoy their alcohol. It just should not be the number one advertiser everywhere I look. And so I'd like to see other more diverse industries represented as opposed to just alcohol. I mean, that's the thing we used to always complain about is like in the hood, you can always find a Chinese store and a liquor store, or Chinese restaurant and a liquor store. And there was always a liquor store everywhere I was. Like no matter where I've lived, there's always a liquor store nearby. And so I think we just need to work on that. So that's just something that I really have just thought about recently, and I just felt like I wanted to mention that here. Before we bring this thing to a close, we're over an hour. Any more questions or comments? Let me look on the Instagram to see if there's anything in particular specific to me. I think you guys are talking to each other right now, which I love. But is there anything from me directly that you want to address, or any questions or comments? Okay, so Kiwa Beautiful says, do you think Ghana can progress with a working government? That's a pretty loaded question. Let me find a way to diplomatically speak on this, especially from someone who is living in Ghana but who is not Ghanaian and who cannot vote here. I'm technically a resident here, but I cannot vote. I think that Ghana has they're moving in the right direction. They're progressing in terms of selecting and using democracy to select leadership and to progress forward and to work on things that are challenges and to help advance. Do I think that there are people who are dissatisfied with government? Yes. I mean, I hear from local people all the time who are dissatisfied. Just like in every other country that I've ever lived, people are dissatisfied. I think the major challenges across Africa historically and even more recently is that the framework in which the way things work is that people are in office for too long, or people are in office not long enough. I was actually just having this conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the fact that, like, because on the continent, right, there's so much damage that had been done from the outside world, and we're also trying to catch up and keep up with a capitalism across the continent, across the globe, actually. Sometimes you need someone to be in position maybe like 15 years, right? Maybe it's three 5-year terms, right? So you have enough time to really implement some strategic change. But what you end up having is some people who end up being in office for too long. And so, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? And so I think the idea of being in power for life, just at some point just ends up having an issue of some kind of corruption. Not to say that there isn't corruption in shorter term, but when you know that you have to get reelected, I think people do try to do some work at the end of a term to try to get reelected. So I guess my point is, I would say I'd like to see 3 5-year terms, a max amount of 3 5-year terms that you can do as a president. I'd like to see countries institute that. I think with that, you have enough time to implement some of your ideas, but you don't have enough time to stay in power forever. So I know that doesn't necessarily answer your question, but it's tough to say. I think that would be the best way for us to see progress across most of the countries we have on the continent, not just Ghana in particular. Now, to go back to Jose, I got you up on the screen here. I'm not even going to. Okay. So I think what Jose is saying is that he's fluent in Spanish and he's Afro-Latino. And I don't know the rest of what he's saying here because I speak and read very little Spanish, but I can read that he said he's fluent in Spanish and he's Afro-Latino. Oh, he translated as next message. I speak fluent Spanish and learning Swahili. I am Afro-Latino and proud. There we go. There you go. So to answer that question, I think someone on Instagram Live was asking that, and we did it across platforms. It was answered on YouTube Live. Okay. So I answered your question. I know that you asked me any other questions for me before we call this thing, before we end this live. Let me know if you have any more questions for me. Next week, I promise to have a topic. I'm working on having a guest with us. She just texted me before the live. I want to talk about Beyond the Return. Some of you who are subscribers are going to be coming to Ghana, and I think you guys should know what's going to be happening here in the next month, because we're already at the 15th of November, which means within 5 weeks or so, Beyond the Return activities, or even sooner, will be beginning. And so I want to start having those conversations so that you guys know what to expect. And I'm also still trying to decide what I'm going to be going to. Jose Clo_Co 2004 says to hit them up. So make sure, and that's on Instagram. So check them out on Instagram. But they said to hit him up. Mr. Bounce Los Angeles is also Afro-Latino, and he's making sure he lets Jose know that too. So shout out to you guys. We have the Afro-Latino community here as well as Africans, and I love it just to see us all coming together. Jose is saying he can't wait for the Egypt content. It's gonna be great. Yeah. So let me give you guys an update on that as well. So where do I start? So my next update, like my next weekly vlog, is going to be about what my day-to-day was like in Egypt, or Kemet, as some people call it, since that was the original name of the country or the area. So I'm going to be doing that, and then I also have about 3 or 4 other pieces of content based around going to the pyramids of Giza, going to the Egyptian Museum, going to one of the older mosques, and kind of getting a view of the city, and just the rest of it's going to be the food that I ate, the nightlife, all of that. I really did enjoy Cairo. It was really cool, and I'm definitely looking forward to sharing that with you guys. Helen has a question. Helen's question is, do you hope to learn Twi, and what other language do you speak apart from Creole? So I do hope to learn Twi. It's it's pretty difficult. Some of my coworkers are working with me on that, so slowly but surely we'll get there. But yeah, I'm learning little by little. But what other language do I speak apart from Creole? That's actually it. I only speak Creole. I don't speak any other languages. And when I say I speak Creole, if you talk to someone who's a Creole speaker, they'll tell you that I sound like an American speaking Creole. But I do my best to speak Creole. Only one is in Rwanda right now. Wow! Shout out to you. We'll have to hear about your trip to Rwanda. Maybe you can jump on the live and tell everybody what that experience has been like. I hear good things about Rwanda these days. That's on the bucket list or on the list of countries I want to visit. But yeah, thanks for joining. I always appreciate you joining lives. She's been joining the lives from the beginning, so yeah. Cool. Chloe Co 2004 says you want to hear me speak Creole. What do you want to hear? What do you? Yeah, that's what I would say. That's it. What do you want to hear? I do speak some Creole, but I you know, like I said, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I need my challenge is emphasizing syllables. I have to like do my best impersonation of my mother, right? And when I'm speaking Creole, because that's kind of how I can make sure that I'm emphasizing syllables properly. And so that's the challenge that I have is that West Africans emphasize syllables differently because of how our languages are spoken, right? And so I need to lose the American accents when I'm speaking Creole. A greeting. So one greeting is I like to say is how you do or how are you doing? Um, that's usually what I say. That's it. That's a greeting. So that was one. Oh, K Loco. I got it. K Loco. That's what you're saying. Okay. So yeah, that's my greeting. How you do? That's what I usually say when I'm calling my caretaker. Um, yeah. So there you go. You guys got me to do it. It's easier if there's someone I'm speaking to and they're speaking Creole. I'm usually pretty good at like phrases. Not when I'm put on the spot, but like if I have to say something, if it's a phrase, you might think that I was born and raised in Sierra Leone. If it's just like a brief little phrase. If I have to speak full sentences, that's when you start hearing it. So K Loco is asking me to repeat it. So so it's how you do, right? So how are you doing, right? Is what I'm asking. If you want me to say it again, I think that's the last time. But yeah, um, sound had gone out on Instagram Live, so I hope you got it that time. Um, Only one is saying that they're loving Rwanda. So and you've been missing my live streams. I know you've been missing my streams, but I'm glad you joined this time, and I'm glad all of you guys joined. So make sure you guys hit that like button. Make sure you share this with other people. Continue to share this content. I'm loving that. Cali Cow, Mr. Bounce Los Angeles. A few of you guys have been sharing this content with your network, and those of you who've gone live, of course your followers on Instagram got a chance to see that you were live, so some of them probably joined this live too. So I really do appreciate you guys sharing this content, and I'm just here to try to offer value to people. Yeah, so that's definitely something that I would say is make sure you share with everyone. Okay, so is it Gerard or Jared? I'm guessing it's Gerard, but you let me know if I'm saying it properly. He says, "Hey, bro, have you seen or heard anywhere in Africa like romantic tours being done? Romantic tours. Um, so I think that there are places here that are romantic. I haven't heard about specific romantic tours, but that's actually probably a good business, something that's really interesting. I actually think that's a good idea. I don't, to be honest, I don't know. I think that's like a Google away from seeing like what some people might be doing that in certain countries. Um, but there are romantic places, like Sierra Leone, for instance. One of the things I like about Sierra Leone is going on a date by the beach, right? Because you have the beach, you have the sunset, you have the nice cool breeze, you can walk on the beach, you can go eat dinner there. right? So there's also that's also really cool, right? And it's the natural lighting, right? So you have that. In Ghana, it's more like it's just choosing a restaurant, things like that. But yeah, I think that's something we got to look up. I don't know the answer to that. It is Gerard. All right, cool. So I got it right. Well, one time I was saying both names. But yeah, cool. I hope that helps answer your question. Sorry, um, I don't have anything off the top of my head. But yeah, if anybody else has any thoughts on that, please do share. Miss P says, "Hey Joe and everyone. Hey Miss P, thanks for joining. What's up?" Um, So Gerard says only being done in Russia, Ukraine, Colombia, as far as I have researched. Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that there are certain people who have who've deemed it a good idea to make romantic tours a part of what they do, so that you can do like honeymoons and things like that. But I do know people do go on honeymoons in on the continent of Africa in a number of different places. So I'm sure that there aren't tours written out as romantic tours or romantic things, but there are people who go for romance, right, and honeymoons in particular. All right, cool. All right, we are at an hour and 15 minutes so far. There's been a lively discussion in Instagram between a couple of folks. I feel like they've been having some interesting conversations, but I'll leave that for you guys to go through the comments and read. Um, but yeah, so Ms. P says, I just got off the plane 30 minutes ago. What is the topic? I love that you just got off the plane and you still joined anyway. Shout out to you for that. So the topic today was really just what are the differences between the U.S. and Sierra Leone, the U.S. and Ghana, really, and what my experience has been, what I miss, what I like better here, all that kind of stuff. It was just kind of like a recap on that. And that's because this week has been pretty hectic, so I couldn't pick one of the topics that I wanted to do. So this was more of a free-flowing discussion. And then we had a couple people join the live. So definitely go back and rewatch the replay. That'll be posted immediately following this, so you can see some of the conversations that came up, some interesting stuff that came out of today's discussion. So I'm really happy that we were able to have some folks participate live with me. Okay, cool. I'm gonna leave it open for one last question. Anybody have a question on? Okay, I'm looking at it here. K Loco says, "Do you affiliate with or grew up with a particular religion?" Ooh, you asked a really interesting question. Okay, so this is a loaded question, and I will say this just because of the audience and some of those folks in the audience. Not to Yeah, this is a tough one because of some of the people who listen to this. I will say this: I grew up in a Christian household. I went to a boarding school away from home with Christians. I do have Muslim family members, a lot actually, and so I think growing up for me, what I ended up moving towards was less about a specific religion and more about a connection with a higher power. Some people call it God, some people call it universe, whatever, whoever you are, however you decide. Some people, of course, deal with ancestors in particular as well, which is something that I have been exploring as well. But I would say that it's been a lifelong journey and it's a constant journey. I would say that there isn't any one answer to that at any given time, depending on where I am right at that time or point in time in my life. But I do subscribe to a higher power, and I just maybe don't. I would say subscribe to one particular religion, but I do believe in a higher power, and I am, of course, very much interested in continuing to explore those things. Yeah, I'm trying to say that in a way that doesn't affect anyone negatively who is listening, who happen to be from my family, who is a very Christian, very very Christian family, and so I don't want to offend. But that's a good question. Okay, Mr. Bounce Los Angeles says, If there was only one country you could visit, not Ghana or Sierra Leone, what country on the continent would it be? Aha. That's a great question, Mr. Bounce Los Angeles. If I could visit any one country, so it's a toss-up between South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria. And for different reasons, but all of which have a thriving startup community where I would like to take my career. So, but I would say, I mean, if I had to choose between those three, it'd be Nigeria, it'd be Lagos, Nigeria, and maybe Abuja as well. Just because it's in West Africa, and I do have some Nigerian heritage that I'm discovering. And so, yeah, I would want to go to Nigeria. But then next after that, it's probably Nairobi, and then Cape Town, and then Johannesburg. Ms. P says she'll go back and watch it. Great. Jose liked my answer about religion. The ancestors ain't no joke. Yeah, I know some people who are doing that journey and doing those studies. So for sure. Mr. Bounce Los Angeles says that was west, south, and east. LOL, nice answer. Yeah. I mean, I have specific cities that are on my list of places to go. Cairo was on that list as a city, and Egypt was a country. But I got a chance to do that last week. So yeah, that is those are the three different countries and cities I'd like to visit. All right, guys, we are an hour and 21 minutes in, and it is about 10:22 over here on GMT in Ghana. So I'm gonna call it a night, but I really appreciate you guys all joining. It's been a great conversation. It's been a spirited discussion on Instagram Live. If you guys want to see what that conversation was like, go check out the Instagram to see the conversations between a number of different members who were following and who were live. Really spirited discussion there. I'm actually going to go back and read through some of it because I couldn't really get through all of it as I was answering questions, and there was a conversation between folks amongst each other. And so I wanted to maybe just address the people who were asking me specific questions. But if I missed any questions, write them in the comments after this video goes live so that I can respond to it there or on the next live. But guys, be on the lookout. This week, I have my update for you on what last week was like in Egypt, what that experience was. And then I have some other content coming to you guys from Sierra Leone, likely. So make sure you guys check that out. All right, with that, I want to thank you guys all for joining. I appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, definitely write them in the comments. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share this with anybody you know who's thinking about moving or visiting the continent. Mr. Bounce Los Angeles says, before we go, on the next live, can I talk about the most underrated country? I can, and I'll look into that based on some of the conversations with people I've had. I can't do it based on my own personal experience, but I can bring that up based on some of the conversations that I've had. For sure, I'll definitely do that. And with that, guys, thanks for joining. I will see you guys all on the next video.